think it was 1,200 women that I've been able to help, whether that's been a group class, a private lesson, they've come to, an online seminar or something. If you can't have that mindset, bodybuilding and competing on stage is not for you, because you're going to have a really bad time. You're going to feel really insecure and all of you're just going to be miserable.
Well, Becc, the main reason what I wanted to have you today here in my podcast is because obviously you are someone who I obviously discovered when I started my prep, and Holly mentioned to me that you were a posing coach, and like I had no idea what a posing coach was. I literally had no idea of anything whatsoever until I just decided to do my journey and like I started learning about every single thing. I am 22 weeks in out of 36-week prep, and it's just been a very interesting journey so far. And I want to thank you so much for just having the time to spend it with me today and having all just a very honest conversation about posing, the challenges, about the mindset that needs to be happening when you're sort of like moving into becoming a new competitor, and like a lot more things that I have in mind. But before anything, talk to me and talk to the audience about who is Becc and what makes you do now what you do.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited to be here, and congratulations on prepping for your first ever show. It can be very overwhelming as a first-time competitor. So congratulations to you for doing it, and also for putting yourself on the line and, recording your whole prep as well. So I know that you don't know a whole lot about me either, really. And so to everyone else, my name is Rebecca Gwilliam. I live in Sydney. I have been a competitor myself. I first stepped on stage in 2013. So what's that, 11 years? I have officially hung up my heels, though. I won't be competing probably for a little bit. My last show was in December 2022. So about a year and a half ago was my last show. And over those, 10 years of actually competing, I was very lucky to do really well at it. I won my pro card. I was then very fortunate to compete at Natural Olympia, where I won, which was really, really, really exciting. And then I decided to change federations, go into the big dogs, and I did Amateur Olympia in 2020, end of 2022. But that's me from a professional, like, athlete perspective. I absolutely loved competing. It was very much a hobby of mine for a lot of those years. I wasn't working in the bodybuilding industry. I was a television investigative producer. That was my job for a very long time. So I used to do really high profile stories all over the world, whether that was terrorist attacks to interviewing celebrities. That was actually my job, and I loved it. I was a journalist. And then bodybuilding became, a passion of mine. It was the one thing that I had in my life that I could control, and that I was doing for myself. And then, fast forward many years now, I'm the owner of Australian Posing School, which is based here in Australia. And then I have the Posing School, which is mainly we're focused in the US, with it's so exciting. We nearly have 500 people as a part of that school, for the Posing School in the US. So me, myself, that's like from a career perspective, who I am. I'm also an IFBB Pro League judge. I'm also married and hope to have a family, sometime in the near future. And that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Oh, that's amazing. I have a couple of questions to ask you. So I guess when I hear about posing, which is something that you are really good at, obviously, what made you choose to do or be a posing coach in the first place, and what makes it attractive for you to do it day after day, especially because it's a career, is something that you choose to do, but what are some of the things that you see that it just makes it all worth it?
Yeah. So when I was prepping and going through I think it was the prep for Natural Olympia, I wanted someone that I could go to that could look at my physique and say, you've got, a really small waist, you should do this pose to emphasize, and accentuate the small waist. And my weak area is actually my glutes and hamstrings. And so I wanted to find someone that, could give me a pose that would hide it. And I truly couldn't find someone that had a really great creative flair that could do really unusual different things. And this was a time as well when I was looking at that was 2018, 2019, and posing really wasn't a thing. Like there literally was about 2 or 3 posing coaches in the whole of Australia. I think there was like one in the US. It really wasn't a thing that a whole lot of athletes, it wasn't a career path, I suppose, because you couldn't really live off it. Athletes didn't, they liked posing and they learnt it, but they didn't prioritize it like it is now. So it was a very different landscape. But back then, couldn't find anyone, and so I was like, well, okay, I'll try and do my own little creative spin with the help of a posing coach. I did have a posing coach at the time, which I saw for one lesson, and then I did the rest. And then it wasn't until I stepped off stage and I had quite a few comments, and when they were doing the live stream of Natural Olympia, they actually said, and like quote unquote, they said, this woman, as in myself, was not winning because of my physique. I was actually doing so well in my placing because of my stage presence and because of my posing. And so it was kind of because of that. Then there was actually one woman that she came to me and she said, could you teach posing? And I thought, yeah, I'd helped out at group classes before for another coach, and I loved it. I just loved being able to, share my wisdom with others. And then it wasn't until I decided to really make it a thing and go out on my own and just, I started small. I still had a full-time job. I was working at Netflix at the time. And so it was one of those things that I still had that as my full-time like gig and salary. And then I just like slowly did a few clients and I loved it. And I just loved watching others grow and transform in the process of their prep, and then obviously celebrating with them at the end. That was really nice, because posing for me it's not just teaching someone hands and arm movements and foot positions and poses, because anyone can do that. And there's obviously been a huge surge of posing coaches recently, especially in the past 12 months, which I'm really excited for, because I love that so many people are seeing posing as a career opportunity. But the real difference is you've got to understand how to deal with people day in and day out, and then also understand that these men and women are going through, a really big transformation in their lives. A lot of them, they're not pro athletes, so their family, their friends, they don't quite understand. And so I love being able to have, be with someone throughout that whole process. Obviously,
Mm.
teach them what to do and why to do it. So that's basically like how I got into the career. I think it was a case of it got to a point where posing was taking over my life, and then I was still in television, and it was just doing this thing. And so I decided, probably at the worst time, but in COVID, we'd come out of lockdown, and I decided to hand in my resignation. And then literally the day after I handed my resignation in, they announced the second lockdowns, and I was like, no. But it was a blessing in disguise, and I do not regret, looking back, I don't regret that leap at all. I think the industry and the scene has definitely changed. So there wasn't the influx of posing coaches. I was the only one at the time that actually called it, something different other than my name. Usually it's, my maiden name is Cox. So usually it was like the Becc Cox. And I really didn't want to do it because Australian Posing School was named because it's not just my show. There's a platform for some amazing posing coaches. And I wanted to be able to help them, especially because I teach all federations and divisions, but just for females. So I wanted to be able to serve as a bigger market. So that's why I called it Australian Posing School. And why do I do it? how do I do it day in, day out, day in, day out? I just love it. And I've been doing it. So Australian Posing School is nearly 5 years old. And I've helped over, I think I looked at the records the other day, and it's been over, I think it was 1,200 women that I've been able to help, whether that's been a group class, a private lesson, they've come to, an online seminar or something. So I'm just so grateful that over that time, I've been able to hopefully positively impact their preps, because I didn't have that support when I was prepping, especially my first show. I was very isolated, and I never want anyone to go through that. And this is who I am. Like, this is what I do every day, day in, day out, and I wouldn't want to do anything else. And I think you can see that even after 5 years, when you come into the studio and you see me do my workshops and my classes and all of that kind of stuff, I just don't want to be anywhere else. So yeah, that's me. That's it in a nutshell.
How did your journey as a competitor start?
So as a competitor myself, I was doing, group classes and all of that kind of thing. And I did a few group or gym challenges back then, like the 8-week challenges. And I loved it. I loved watching my body change and, learning weight training and dieting and all of that kind of stuff. And I was really looking for a new challenge. There was, social media wasn't a thing when this was all happening. So there was a girl in my gym that I knew had competed, because there was like her photo on the wall. And I was like, oh, one day I want to look like that. And I said to her, how did you do it? And she said, this is my coach. And he was a coach just up the road. And so I had a meeting with him, and he was like, right, I honestly think I did like a 14-week prep back then. And I did it. And I definitely wasn't lean enough. I wasn't in condition. I definitely had no idea about, really pushing yourself in the gym. I don't think you truly know how hard to push. And, and especially because it wasn't like I'd been intensely weight training for years and years and years before I did a prep. So that's how I started.
When you think about the length of prepping, what is your stance on the length of the prep? Because especially for beginners, I'd say is obviously a little bit of a different situation compared to someone that has been doing it for a long time and they have already kind of like the physique built somehow. And it's more just about improvement seasons and improving based on the feedback they get from the judges and everything. But when you first ever decide to do a show and a prep, what is your stance on the length of the prep? Is it better doing a short prep, like a 14, 12-week, or something like I did that was a 36-week long? And I had been training for 20 years. Like I had the foundation, like the physical foundation, the muscles. It was just like the emotional aspect, being ready, the relationship with food, like a lot other things that I think they had to be in place for me to be successful at just doing everything that the prep itself requires. So what is your stance on that?
I think that there is no one size that fits all. And so it completely depends on what you define as a prep, right? So some is that a deficit? So like, is either prep a deficit, or is it about actually getting, fundamentals back in place in terms of having really good, actually tracking your food, understanding how much your food is, or is a prep, you know, going through maybe a little bit of a growth phase, going above maintenance calories, and then going in. So everyone's prep is different. And it also depends on the individual. So if it's someone that has, especially men, if it's a male that, has a really good amount of muscle, we all know they need usually a shorter prep, just because there's not such of hormonal fluctuations as females. And it also depends on, everyone's prep is different. So what does your life look like? Do you have a very stressful life? Do you have a lot of work events coming up, or events in your life over your prep? If you do, then of course sometimes having a longer prep is fantastic, because I know a few of my friends are amazing coaches, and it's about, okay, we can also implement a lot of refeeds in, there's a lot of diet breaks. And that's where a long prep can be really good. Sometimes I find that a normal, in quotation marks, is somewhere in the middle. So most women will do, that I see, usually like a 20 to 24 week prep. And that's because they've typically done, and that means a deficit. Okay. That's not like, they've started there. It's more they've probably done a maintenance phase or a growing phase beforehand, surplus, and then they're now entering their prep. And that allows for, obviously, to do it nice and steadily without too many drastic changes, hopefully, into their life or putting stress on their body. But I do definitely think that every individual is so different, and it just depends on different factors. I've had women that have done an 8-week prep because they were in such a good shape, I suppose. And then it was almost like their coach said, do you want to jump on stage in 6 weeks? And they were like, hell yeah. So I think it's very, very, very different. If we're talking about beginners, I think that the actual, planning should be a year out in terms of going, okay, what does my physique look like? Firstly, do I have enough muscle mass, or do I have enough muscle mass in the right areas that is needed? That's the first thing. And then if you do, looking at that 20 to 24 week mark, or longer, depending on what your body is like. And hopefully you're working with a coach. And then, if you're in really incredible shape, sometimes towards the lower end, and I've got clients sometimes as well, they just like to go hard and fast. I always use this quote, which is, prep is like going to war. You get in, you do the job, and then once it's done, you get out. And so some clients, that's like a 12-week, 10-week intense prep, extreme calorie deficit, cardio, boom, 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 and then they get out of it. So everyone is different. And I think that there is no right length, if that makes sense.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I guess you're just thinking about me being a dietitian and a nutrition coach for so many years, and like just getting into the evidence-based area where like we do the research, we do see the metabolic adaptation and how like rapid fat loss phases can be actually quite detrimental for the longevity of a competitor, especially if we want to see like reduce lean body mass losses, reduce sort of like post-show binges and things like that. So I guess that's where I'm coming from, like in terms of the length and the aggressiveness of the approach for each competitor. Like the shortest length, I guess it makes sense when you mention if they have already a very lean physique and they've kind of got already the skills to do it, there's probably very little that they will be putting at risk, to say the least. But I guess the other point for me to asking this question is the posing. Obviously, some people have a little bit more of a natural tendency to be very feminine and like move easily like a wave, like you just move your arms and you feel like it just comes really natural to you. But for people that need to transform themselves and become someone they're not there yet. Like I'm putting myself into this situation. I've always been like really rigid, always training, pushing myself. I'd never walked on heels before. Like I always hated heels. I never imagined myself that I would be doing a lot of like modeling or feminine things that way, or just showing my ass to everyone or putting a bikini on. So how do you deal with that mental aspect when you get started as someone who hasn't yet become the person who's going to be on the stage, and like the transformative journey of posing? What makes it feel natural for you beyond just practicing? Because practicing obviously is going to be like 100% important, but what else do you think you need to have maybe around your mindset, your attitude, and anything that is going to help build what you want to see on the stage, moving confident and like showing what you're meant to be showing, if that makes sense?
I think the first thing is that if you are very new to posing or very new to bodybuilding is that you need to understand that bodybuilding, you are entertaining. So you are stepping on stage as a performer, and bodybuilding is entertainment. So it is a stage performance. That's what it is. So like that in itself is a huge part of bodybuilding. You don't get like it's not just based on your strength or how much you can lift, because obviously there are other sports for that. So what goes hand in hand with bodybuilding is you've got to walk on stage and you've got to perform. And if you don't perform, it can really, really, really impact your score. And so that's the first thing I think that everyone as a beginner needs to understand. It's like, okay, cool. I've decided to do this thing because I probably like weight training. I like tracking my food. I like health. And then it's like, okay, I've got to step on stage wearing pretty much no clothes in front of adults that are going to judge me on my physique. And that understanding that from the first place is like, right, okay, I'm going to strap myself in. I've got a job to do. And it's always about being the best bodybuilding athlete that you can be in terms of posing. So you're never going to look like somebody else in terms of their routine. And I hope not, because you have a very different physique. So I think when you are going through the process, rather than just saying, oh, like practice your posing or do that kind of stuff, it's actually about the biggest transformation. And I find this with athletes is that men and women need to start. They need to build confidence within themselves and they need to actually love themselves. And I know that's very much like they need to love themselves, like kind of generic statement, but it truly works. If you have a bad relationship with yourself, if you can't look at yourself in the mirror, there is no way that you can step on that stage and say like, hey, judges, look at me, I'm freaking amazing. Because that's actually the mindset that you need to have when your foot hits the stage, whether that's a heel or a bodybuilding foot. When that foot hits the stage, your mindset needs to be, this is the best I've ever freaking looked in my life. And you need to all look at me because I am so proud of myself. And if you can't have that mindset, bodybuilding and competing on stage is not for you, because you're going to have a really bad time. You're going to feel really insecure and all of you're just going to be miserable. And I've seen it time after time. Now, the reason why I also see it is because men and women don't prioritize their posing. And so when they go on stage, they understand how important posing is. And they're like, oh my gosh, they walk off stage and then I always get these messages with men and women that come to me and they say, I should have come to you for my first show. I really regret not practicing. I really not regret like prioritizing myself. When you're a first timer, when it comes to posing, we're so fixated. You're so fixated on the end goal and like what you're going to look like at the end. And that's what you're working towards, right? But when it comes to posing, it can be really overwhelming because there's so many moves and transitions and walking. And then you've never walked in heels. So throw in the heels. And it's about working with someone, hopefully a coach that doesn't let that process be so overwhelming and actually makes it enjoyable. And so it's like, okay, let's maybe focus on, if you're a first timer and never walked in heels, let's focus on getting you in those heels and let's get you walking. And sometimes the way that I teach is that we master one thing and then we move on. And it's almost like the reward of you practicing and hopefully perfecting it to about 60 to 70%. Then we move on. It's when sometimes that you try and do too many things at once at the beginning that it can just be an absolute cluster mess. And I see girls and they're like, oh my God, what about this transition and this arm move? And I want to have sass and I want all of this stuff, yet they can't actually hit a front pose. So it's about, sometimes if you are a beginner, strip it all back, understand there's a process to get there and enjoy every single part of it and reward yourself. So what I mean by that, if you hit, a really great front pose, take a photo and be really proud of it. Put it as your phone backdrop, or if you want to put it on social media, go for it. But be really proud of each different stage of your prep, because we can really get caught up with never being good enough. And, when I step on stage in 16 weeks, when I step on stage, rather than the actual enjoyable bit is actually the everyday life. And I think that's where everyone gets lost post-show, because they've been working so hard for this huge show. And then after the show happens, they're like, who am I? And I see identities get lost all the time because they become so fixated on competing that they almost lose who they actually are. And so that when the show finishes, they realize that they're not a full-time athlete, they've got a life. They get really lost. So my best advice would be like, don't take it slow because everyone's rates are different, but you need to understand that there's so much more that comes into posing rather than just practicing every day or practicing every week. There's a lot of mindset work that also comes with it. And I think that really helps in building up your confidence and in just enjoying the process.
I have seen in different situations that you if you want to dominate and like be really good at posing and just having better flow, you want to practice all the things in addition to sort of like hone the mobility of your body to present specific poses, or just to get that mindset or the attitude, the sass. If especially if you're someone who is more like introverted or have never had that sort of like, exposure to moving or presenting your body in a different in front of a stage. So I see people like doing like dancing classes or like pole dance or these kind of things. So in your opinion, are there skills or extracurricular activities that you would always suggest for developing the best posing and stage presence that you can possibly build, even if you're not necessarily a first timer, but we're kind of like looking at someone who is just getting started? Would you recommend to do something else beyond just posing?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I would recommend is actually posing with others, and that's my number one thing. So rather than overwhelming yourself with, doing a dance lesson or going into something else, of course they're fantastic, but we've got to be really conscious in prep time. Time is a thing, and sometimes if you are so the people that want to do, extracurricular activities such as maybe dancing or, you can do a heels dance class. They're all amazing things. And I definitely like go for it. But the reason why a lot of competitors are doing those things is because posing and dancing doesn't come naturally to them and there's a little bit of fear, there's a lot of nerves around it. So my best advice, instead of and this is just actually my opinion, instead of overwhelming yourself with, because you're trying to learn posing, why are you going to learn dance? Like I get it, learns flow and all of that kind of stuff, but the main posing is not dancing, and that's the biggest thing. I get a lot of dancers and I have to completely change them. So rather than, genuinely overwhelming your brain, it's about putting yourself in different environments that are going to help build your confidence or help give you that extra bit of motivation or determination for your practice that week. So that's why posing in different environments. So whether that's posing maybe in between your sets at the gym, just to build that little bit of stage confidence, whether that's posing in front of your friends and family, your children, posing on different surfaces as well can be really, really, really helpful. So rather than just doing it in the same section of your same house, go and do it on your driveway, go and do it in different surfaces. It just helps build experience. And also, you need to be able to be prepared for anything on stage. Anything can happen. I've seen situations where there's been someone passed out backstage, so competitors had to enter from a different stage. I've been to, stage before and they've completely changed the surface because it was so slippery that they actually like literally ran like a rug mid-show. So that's really important. And then there's nothing quite like posing in a group environment. So getting next to other athletes, meeting them. How are you? How is your prep? Oh my gosh, how are you going? What federation and division are you doing? All of that stuff, it makes you feel like you belong and it makes you feel more at home, so that then when you are going into that group class and you are posing in front of them, you actually relax. And most competitors, it is a competition, right? So we thrive off competition. We actually thrive in those group classes, and I see it all the time. Maybe there's a competitor that's a little bit nervous when they have their private sessions, like their one-on-ones. Then when they're in a group class, they actually come out of their shell a little bit because it's that competition environment. Even though everyone's friendly, it's still like they're like, oh, I want to look like her, or, that kind of stuff. So, of course, if you are super rigid and you think that, dance lessons and yoga and all of that kind of stuff can really help from a physical perspective, absolutely. But it's like, if you're short on time, I would more prioritize actually group classes and posing in unusual different environments just to really help that stage confidence.
Looking at sort of like compulsory positions or poses that you have to hit when you're competing. Why is it different across different federations, that your front pose is going to be different between, I don't know, and IFBB, or like the side pose or like the back pose? What makes it a federation different from each other, and why the different posing, mandatory posing, would be different in that situation?
So there are like close to, I think I did the final count was like recently it was like 19, or I think it was even 18 active federations here in Australia. And that's the thing, they're all different federations, they're all different companies and businesses. And of course, they stand on their own and they look for different things. So there is not one universal rule of posing, and every, I suppose, president or federation president or board, they want different things in an athlete. And so it's up to that federation to choose the posing that they want for their divisions, and they make the rules. So why? Because, they probably want to set a different standard. They want to be unique. They want to stand out. It would be very boring, I think, if all 18 had the same poses and the same turns. I don't think there would be 18 if there was that. And I really love it because I love that there are so many federations here in Australia and worldwide. And the reason why is because there's a specific body type and a personality that suits them all. And so if there was just one size fits all, how bloody boring would that be? And I'm very, very, very glad that there are different poses and that they offer different things, half turns, quarter turns. They offer, free flowing posing. So it really depends on the individual. And I think the reason why the federations have their own unique posing is because of that. They're unique and they want to be able to be different to other federations.
When sort of like thinking about the winning your pro card, and I hear all that always just, oh, I just want to be get my pro card and then like being able to compete internationally and things like that. What does that actually mean? Like you win your pro card and then what?
Yeah. So I know everyone's like, what's a pro card? So it depends on the federation that you are winning your pro card in. But the whole goal mainly for a professional athlete is to get rewarded for their time. So in the professional circuit, in most cases, you do get, if you do win or you come second or third, you usually get reimbursed for that. So there are prizes rather than just a trophy. So usually you get a monetary prize. But not only that, with having a pro card, essentially, you are then competing against just pros, which step up the caliber of the physiques that you are competing in. And it also means that opportunities open up to you, not necessarily always, but you definitely have a higher chance of maybe working with brands that may be able to support your bodybuilding career. So whether that's, a supplement company, whether that's maybe a trainer sponsors you, apparel, bikinis, all of that kind of thing, it really opens up that. And it also opens up your business. So if you are in the health and fitness industry that does complement bodybuilding, if you do win your pro card, there's definitely a more of a platform that you can leverage from. And I really think that if you are someone that wants to become a professional bodybuilding athlete, it can be really good to have a business or a product or something that you can leverage, especially when you win your pro card, because when you do win, there is this big surge and everyone's like, who is that won? So I really instill that in my clients that want to win their pro card. But at the end of the day, you've got to, I find that there's probably, in terms of my athletes, there's 80% of my clients that they want to do bodybuilding for fun. And of course, they would love to win their pro card, but are they going to do anything when they win their pro card? Are they going to use it? Probably not. It's just more a goal that they tick off. And then I've probably got 20% of athletes that are actually pros that I help pose. And that's what they do day in, day out. Obviously, some of them have their own jobs, but they're in the bodybuilding industry or fitness industry. And then, there are a small portion of them that literally all they do is bodybuilding, and they get their, all of their revenue from all of their sponsorships and contracts and little products and things that they sell. So I think it's like a pro card is, you compete in the pro, status in the pro category now. Some federations have pro categories, some of them don't, and they've all got different levels as to when the pro shows happen. Usually it means that there's less pro shows, there's less shows that you compete in because the pool is smaller, but it's better and it's harder. It's a really good goal to have.
Do you believe that nowadays, compared to a few years ago, the the use of like PEDs and things like that has become a little bit more dominant, especially in different across different federations that allow to use PEDs, but more so for like we're seeing bikini women or like certain categories within certain divisions and like certain federations to present themselves much bigger compared to like a few years ago. We would have seen the same bikini or like a wellness or someone not as built in or that big, like compared to like when we look at people at the Olympia or the Arnolds, that we know that they already have done like a lot of work at potentially there in PEDs. But have you noticed any sort of like increased trends in presenting, being looking at athletes that are presenting them a bit bigger, a bit harder compared to what the initial physique would have been a few years ago?
Yeah. I honestly I can't comment on PEDs because I don't know. It's not a question that I ask my clients. I don't say to them, are you on PEDs? So I think it's a case of what I can answer with that is that the standard has gotten a lot higher. But that's also the popularity is a lot more. When we look at the, bikini Olympians over the past 10 years, say for example, of course they're bigger. Of course, they're harder, but a lot of them have actually been competing for that period of time. And bodybuilding is a sport. It evolves, it changes, and what the judges are requiring to win also changes as, the federation grows and evolves. So I think it's a case of there are a lot more athletes coming onto the market. They are coming into the industry. They're wanting to compete, which I love. And I think because of that, there are some incredible physiques that we're seeing a lot more bigger athletes, fuller athletes, more conditioned athletes that are actually coming through, which allows the standard to keep rising.
Okay, it kind of makes sense. And
And
now I
every
have
federation is different too. Every federation is so different, in terms of when you look at ICN bikini. My clients, I had some amazing clients that just competed at ICN Nationals that won their pro card. I actually had two that won their bikini pro card, which is just insane. And they were beautiful athletes. They were natural, very small, very petite. They weren't super hard. They've only been training for like, a couple of years. They look really beautiful and feminine. And so they're just absolutely gorgeous. And then when you go to the others, there are so many IFBB bikini girls that I know are natural and win. So I think it's just the case of also, that athlete's background of how long they've been training as well.
okay. I have heard a couple of times from you when you refer to posing using a statement that is very interesting, and I love for you to expand on this. And you said that a better posing will always beat a better body. So talk to me a bit about that. So I know that definitely posing can enhance and increase the visibility of areas that you have weak points, as you mentioned. But where did this kind of a statement really kind of gain strength?
Yeah. So I was sitting in a group class. It wasn't my Australian Posing School group class. And everyone was going around and introducing themselves. And I said, hi, my name is Becc. I love posing because I truly think that a better poser will always beat a better body. And that's where it literally came out. I literally just said it in a group class. And then it was essentially the Australian Posing School tagline because of course, if you're looking at a competitor that's not a condition that's, maybe 5 kilos out of winning condition, and then you're looking at that has amazing posing, and then you're looking at a competitor that has insane condition, but it's not a very good poser, of course, the person with the better physique with insane conditioning is going to win. I think the statement means a better poser will always beat a better body is when you're looking at two athletes, if they both have similar physiques or one is posing to their assets. One can't show their assets at all. The one that's showing it is going to win. And what I mean by that, and I see it from a judging perspective as well, sometimes when you're talking about, especially in, say, women's figure, men's, all of the men's categories, so physique, classic physique, bodybuilding, if they can't get their lats out in their back pose, how can we judge that? And that's when it can be really frustrating, because that they've got it. As a human, you're like, that they've probably got it in there, but we can't see it. And the judge can only judge on what they see on the day. So it's in that situation is that if they had learned how to actually pose better, their placing would have been reflected by that. And at the end of the day, if there's two physiques that are, incredible, and one can really accentuate and highlight their assets and hide maybe some skin wrinkling, or, if they've got any stretch marks or any kind of imperfections. And then you've got a competitor that just doesn't quite understand posing, still has a great physique, but maybe in their transitions opens up too much. You can see some skin wrinkling, all of that kind of stuff. Who's going to win?
Okay. Now, I have a very interesting question around tanning, like using a tan. Why do we use tan for bodybuilding and not just your natural skin? Is that something that is meant to just make everyone roughly the same in terms of a skin color, or is there something special about the tanning to bring up more like the visual appearance of the physique, or like what is it about the tanning that it is so important?
I think that there's a lot of factors, I think, that come into the tan. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when bodybuilding first, was around, and they said we're going to, tan everyone up. And I think it probably started with, competitors didn't get tanned. They actually probably got oiled up, or, the old fact, like bronzing oil, just oiled up to make their muscles sparkle and to make their muscles pop. Because bodybuilding originated, I don't know if you're aware, but bodybuilding originated because it was it was basically, the strong man. It was a strongman event, and the strong men would essentially take off all of their clothes, like, shirts and whatever, and they would hit a pose, and the crowd would go wild for the posing section of the strongman. And so it was then from there, that's when bodybuilding was born, because, they saw a business in that the crowd loved it when they flexed. Obviously, we're talking about men, when they'd show their biceps and stuff. And that's actually how bodybuilding was born. It's an amazing history. If you ever get time, go and have a look at how it started. But I think it probably started with a bit more, oil and things like that. And then as posing and as bodybuilding has evolved, we're talking about your stage, your understage lights. Stage lights can really wash out someone with that. And when you think about theatre, when you think about performing, they always have darker, thicker makeup. And I think it's a case of, when it comes to bodybuilding, the reason why there is such a dark tan is because when they are on stage, it just absolutely makes those muscles pop, the lines, the definition, they look smooth. And yeah, I think that would be my answer for that.
Awesome. All right. I am aware of your time. Do we have 10 more minutes?
Yeah.
We good with time? Yep. Okay. So another thing that I want to, I've heard from you a couple of times, is that you talk a lot about stage presence. So talk to me a bit more about, how do you define the stage presence, and what are some of these attributes and skills that you would add to define like a good stage presence?
So everyone's stage presence is unique to themselves, and they need to make sure that they feel like themselves. So when I'm talking about amazing stage presence, it's when I see an athlete and I can't stop looking at them. And that's not, I'm looking at them from a, oh my God, who is that? They are amazing, rather than what are they doing? Which, as a posing coach, and especially because I literally analyze physiques day in, day out. Like today, for example, I have 7 clients in a row. Like, I'm literally looking at their physique. So it's one of those things that stage presence is, you want someone when they come on stage to just look effortless. They look like they're having the most amazing time, like they're having fun and they want to be there. They're smiling, they're present too, like they're aware of looking to the left and looking to the right. They hold themselves with, I don't know, just with elegance, and no matter, like, that's obviously male and females as well, and they feel comfortable in themselves. That's what stage presence is. It's about knowing when to turn it on and when to also maybe be really humble and just stand there. And I think that everyone's stage presence is slightly different depending on your personality, and it is undeniable when you see an athlete that has incredible stage presence, you just know. But when it comes to stage presence, I would say it's all about how they hold themselves, what their eye contact is like, what their facial expressions are like, how polite they are on stage next to other athletes as well. That's a really big thing. And their tempo. So not taking too long in specific movements and then not being too fast. It's kind of like this whole big stage presence. And then it also goes in hand with how they look. So what their bikini or, their trunks look like, how they've done their hair and makeup, how they walk, all of that kind of stuff. Like, do they walk with their chin down when they leave the stage? I'm looking at that. Like, when an athlete's done and they're leaving, I'm looking, because most competitors are like, oh my God, get me off stage. That was like so terrifying. Where I want that athlete that maybe does like a cheeky look back that's like, thank you for my time. Like, I've prepped for you nearly a bloody year. So I'd be like, thank you, judges. I've worked a year for this, and then off you go, because at the end of the day, there is only going to be one winner, but you want to make sure that you really put your best foot forward.
I love that answer, and I think it's just so interesting to see how many things come together on the show day, and like you've worked so hard, and like yeah, you want to show the best and be proud of yourself. Like, you're fucking proud of myself. Like, I did so well. Now, the other thing that I really want to just sort of like go through very quickly is the show day essentials. I think this is like especially big for someone who is a beginner. What are the things that you know that you have to know and that you need to have backstage on show day that it can never be missing? So you're always prepared and ready to go in case something happens.
There's so much. I actually have a list. I've done multiple over the 5 years. I think every twice a year I post like show day essentials. So I'll try and remember all of the main ones. And especially this was also done from myself as an athlete that I, would forget or learn, be like, oh shit, I should have bought that. But obviously there's the main thing. So you need to bring obviously your stage day outfit, whatever that is. So bikini or trunks if you're a guy, you need to bring heels. I would bring a change of clothes that's not, tracksuit pants and a top, because sometimes, I know this sounds really weird, but sometimes after your show you want to go out. So, and you forget, and then you can go out for dinner and you're all pretty, but you're wearing your tracksuit. Making sure that you have all of the essentials that you need. So whether that, your food for the day, anything touch up tans, touch up makeup, touch up hair, a little, safety kit. So whether that's got, a sewing thread and needle, whether that's got super glue, safety pins in case anything happens with your bikini, rubber bands, anything, just like a little safety kit that you've got in case something can go wrong. Then you've got things like, I loved bringing a pillow. I loved bringing a blanket because I usually feel the cold when I'm in a extreme deficit, when I'm right, towards that end with no body fat. I really liked having a blanket. I know this sounds very, easy to, oh, duh, like, of course you'd bring this, but I forgot it multiple times. It was a phone charger or a power bank. I would always forget that. A mirror, a little mirror, because most bodybuilding, like backstage, you don't really have a mirror, or there's so many girls that are looking at you. So I would always pack myself like a little mirror that I could look at myself, make sure my makeup was okay. Maybe some spare jewelry if you can. I've probably missed a whole lot of other things. Pump up bands, weights. I think that would be, oh, like always hairspray. Always bring hairspray and a comb, because I think you really forget, your hair will go like a bit crazy, or especially if you're competing in multiple divisions. Sometimes you just need someone to like comb it through, which is usually my job. I say to my clients, I'm like, do you have your hairspray? And they're like, no. So usually we're like sharing this one big of hairspray throughout, all of us brushing each other's hair out, because that's really important. I think that's it. I probably missed like something really obvious, but
I guess that you need probably like bring a big box of everything that you need. How
Yeah,
do you do?
literally everything. So get a suitcase and you'll never overpack. Who cares? Who cares if you only use one thing? You know, you want to be prepared. Bring your straightener. If you're a girl, bring like your hair straightener. So because you just never know. Bring the things that you would do to get ready for a big event. Make sure they're there, plus your food, plus your chat. It's almost like you're going camping.
Yeah.
Good.
Do you always recommend to stay a few days before near the venue where the actual competition is going to be held? Or because usually you have, or what I've heard is that you have an initial coat of the tanning one day before, and you get sometimes to go to the stage and see how it looks like, and so you have an idea of where to walk and things like that. But overall, like, does it make it easier when you stay closer or nearby the venue to just have everything nearby and have it around?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a no-brainer. Some places you even actually have to tan 2 days before. So if you are traveling, of course, if you live in the same state, there is no need to do that. Or the same city, sorry, there is no need to do that. But definitely if you don't live in that city or are a couple of hours away, I really, really, really recommend definitely staying the night before and the night after your show, just because one, you're gonna have to get up really, really, really early, and two, sometimes shows go till really late. So it's really good to be, probably I would say about 15 minutes in an Uber, maybe close to it. And if you are fortunate enough to, if your federation has a show and there's like a hotel right next door or right on top of the venue, which happens all the time, I really suggest doing that, because if you do have a big break, so you might, say for example, you've got, in some federations you might have like a 6 hour break, you can go back to your room and lie down. And whereas if if you have a place that's an hour away or whatever, you just feel weird with all, like, by the time you go and you get settled and all of that kind of stuff. So anything that can make your life easier, I highly recommend. Even we have shows that are here. I'm in Sydney, so at the ICC, which is in the city, which is literally 15 minutes. And I actually stay at the hotel right next door, because there is, the show usually, I'm up at like, 4:30, checking on clients, and then there's a break, and then the show finishes at like maybe 9 p.m. I don't want to have to then come all the way home and then have this weird break in between and all of that kind of stuff. It's just, even I'm not even competing, but I want a hotel room.
In your experience, and I have two more questions, and I promise I'll let you go. Are you okay with time?
Yeah, I probably have
Yeah.
to go at 9:05.
Okay, cool. What is it, how have you found a lot of like challenges when it comes to online posing versus doing that in person? I think not just for the sake of obviously being able to see details and being able to correct or help your athlete, but also perhaps the fact that your client or the athlete could also feel like the they are missing something that you could just give them in person.
Good question. I love both. My success is 50%. So my pro cards, more pro card winners have been taught online by me,
Okay.
because I teach differently. And that's the thing, is that when I first started, many years ago, when I first had my first online client, I quickly learnt, because then she went on stage, and I quickly learnt that I could not teach the same way that I teach in person, and that I have to ask them to do unusual things. Maybe I'm viewing them from the side. I'm looking at, different angles. If anything, I think I'm a harder posing coach online, because it's so direct and I'm looking at an image and I'm so detailed with that. Whereas when it's in person, there's so many things that happen. We pose, we chat, we move, sometimes you get caught up, they want to break. Whereas when it's online, it's like, boom, let's do this, let's go. And I'm looking at them really from a detailed perspective. Not that I'm not doing that in person, but it's just really, really different. I think that every individual is different. You have to be open to online lessons. If you're not open to online lessons, they're just going to be frustrating and annoying for both the coach and the client. And if you are someone that just likes someone touching you and moving you, Of course, in person is better, especially if you are very nervous. But I've got, and as I said, I have a lot of clients online. I have a lot of clients in the US and a lot of clients worldwide in Australia, even New Zealand, India, and Thailand. And it works. I just teach differently. And it's great use for their time because they don't have to commute anywhere. They have me and they know exactly kind of what to do. I think just when you're online, you've got to listen. You can't just think that you can watch someone and do it. You've got to actually listen to the coach's cues. Like, I might say, Astrid, I want you to move your left foot slightly in for me. And then I want you to slightly move your hips towards your kitchen. I'll kind of talk like that. And it's if the client can listen, that's when online really, really, really works.
That's awesome. I have loved our conversation, Beck. You are amazing. I'm very interested in learning how you actually got to be part of a judge panel. Do you have a bit of a story that you want to chat about?
No real story. Essentially, I was just very fortunate enough to be given an opportunity with IFBB Pro League to be a judge. I've now done 18, I've judged 18 shows, which is really exciting, which I'm very grateful for. And I love it. I think that the IFBB Pro League are a fantastic federation. They welcomed me in with open arms. The judges are incredible. The amount of knowledge that they have taught me from a judging, perspective is incredible. And they are so passionate. The judges on that judging panel, the most passionate people that I've ever met about bodybuilding and wanting to help athletes. And they want to see athletes come back year after year. And we remember you, when we're there, we're like, we remember that client or that athlete, sorry, that competed 3 years ago. Wow, look at the muscle that he or she has built. Like, that's so cool. And like, we actually go, oh, like, even though, they might still come sixth, the last time they competed, they came probably 13th, So we really love that. And I was given an opportunity by Tony Doherty, and I'm just so grateful for that. And I love it. I love, love, love judging, and I think that it has really, really helped me individually because I was an athlete for so long. It has really helped me give me a purpose as well. Of course, being a business owner and living vicariously through my athletes is amazing, but I love being able to give back to a sport that gave me so much and continues to give me so much as well.
Is there any final thoughts or recommendations or advice that you have for a beginner athlete
Yeah.
that is going to jump on stage very soon?
Don't underestimate how long it will take to perfect your posing, and that there are going to be really good days with your posing and there's going to be really bad days, just like it is with training. Don't overwhelm yourself. Find a coach. Hire a posing coach, firstly. That's my best thing. Try and do it alone. Really hire someone that you connect with as well, because there is a posing coach for everyone. And I am not everyone's cup of tea. And it's really important that you feel connected to that posing coach, that you trust them, and that you know that they're going to get you to where you need to be, and that they have proven results in terms of support, and that they know what they're doing. And just have fun in the process. Have fun doing it, because at the end of the day, there is only one winner. Majority of the athletes that prep for shows lose. And as much as that is a hard pill to swallow, that is the honest truth. And so you've got to make sure that you love this process and that you've really enjoyed doing this for yourself and nobody else. And once you uncover all of this amazing I don't know, I see athletes all the time and they're in so much awe of themselves because they're like, I did that. I nailed my prep. And I think that's what's worthwhile. You've got to do it for you in the long run, because you're always chasing perfection and it will never come. Because even if you do win your pro card like I did, then you got to go into the pro league, or you got to step into the pros, and then you're always wanting to do better and be better. So just enjoy the process, go slow, and have fun. That's my biggest thing. And meet some amazing friends too.
Thank you so much, Beck, for that's amazing recommendation and advice. Is there anything that you want people to direct you towards your posing school? Anything coming up for you? Any sort of like a special event or something that you want to talk about?
So they can find me on, so basically we have Australian Posing School, which is based here in Australia. At the moment, my books aren't open to the general public. I am absolutely at capacity. I'm actually booked pretty much for the whole year, which is, I'm very, very, very grateful for that position. But I also feel really sad when competitors come to me and they go, "What do you mean you have no availability?" I'm like, "Do you not know how many clients I have?" But we have amazing team of coaches. I also run group classes and workshops as well. So if you want like a bit of me. And then the Posing School, which is our online school, that's where I always direct clients to first. So if you're doing bikini, IFBB bikini especially, if you're doing wellness, if you're doing figure, if you're doing classic physique or bodybuilding, we have courses for them. And literally they're like the female courses are myself or Amy Fox, and Amy did figure and the guys. And they're literally how I teach. So I recorded 15 different modules of exactly how I would structure, say, someone's posing journey. And it's me, and they're really intense modules. And you also get a community that comes with that and unlimited support with that. So you can actually buy the course, do the course, and then you can actually send me a message and send me your posing, and I'll review it and give you tips as well. And that's all included in that course. So if that's the Posing School, and then there's Australian Posing School, which we have group classes in the physical studio here in Sydney. You can obviously type those two handles into Instagram or our website, so just the normal .coms, and you'll find us on socials. And yeah, we have a whole bunch of apparel and shoes and the works. And we've got, if you don't know what federation or division to do, I also do comp consults. So a lot of clients, they don't even have a coach, and they come to like a training and nutrition coach, and they come to me and they're like, "Oh my God, I want to compete, but I don't know where to start. Where do I fit?" All of that kind of stuff. And I can absolutely help you, because I never want anyone to have a bad experience or to feel alone in this, because it can be really overwhelming because there's just so much to go through and to organize and things like that. That's me in a nutshell. Thank you so much, Astrid, for having me. I really, really, really appreciate it.
It was amazing, and I appreciate you for me here. This is going to be live in a couple of weeks, so I'll tag you, let you know, and have a beautiful and amazing day.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye, Beck.
Bye.